You are listening to Draw 4 Podcast. Good tidings, and thanks for joining us. My name is James Kelly. I'm a member of the production team here at Draw 4 and a Modern player.
My name is Joseph Dunlap. I am the executive producer of Draw 4 Podcast, and I'm a featured writer and editor for Manaleak.com.
I'm TJ Love. I'm a standard player for Magic. I play Modern as well, and I'm just a recurring guest to Draw 4.
I wouldn't so much call you a guest of Draw 4 as much as you're just commonly a guest of one of the two teams, but you no longer have to call yourself a guest.
Well, that makes me feel a lot better.
Of course, you guys have to come up with a name.
I was Team Manaleak guest, and then I was spontaneous guest. Now I'm just guest.
Well, I mean, you've been a guest on both teams. It's just that you're not completely sold on the idea I had for the name for your team with Brenda, which was Team Grind.
Well, yeah, I thought I settled with it. I don't know, I might not have said anything about it, I guess.
You reacted as if maybe you didn't like the word grind being in the name of your team?
No, I didn't even think about it. I mean, that's all it is.
We'll figure it out. So we've been kind of finding our footing in the past few episodes, trying to figure out how we want to organize our episodes, what we want the format to be. And in episode 10, we introduced, just sort of informally, that we would have an article for Manaleak featured in each episode. So that is Manaleak Article of the Week. But we also have the community discussion, which replaced the lightning round recently, which is the end of the episode, and that's how you kind of wind up and get towards the community question. But we also have our beginning warm-up topic, and that segment is called The Upkeep.
We're saying goodbye to standard staples.
Oh, yeah. When is Shadows of Innistrad dropping?
In April.
In April, so there's not actually that much time, just like a month. And here in Texas, after the GP Houston, there is no other standard event for a while. Really, unless you've got an event in the next month, it's time to say goodbye to these standard staples. So we have in our Google Doc a list of staples, James. If you want to kind of read through those, we can kind of say our goodbyes and maybe talk about what we expect might happen to standard as a result of these cards leaving the format.
Oh yeah, especially in Khans of Tarkir, there's a lot of big ones like Siege Rhino, Mantis Rider, Monastery Swept Spear.
I'm not sad to see Siege Rhino go, but Mantis Rider was a big hitter.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited for them in Modern though, because man, they're going to be exciting.
I think Mantis Rider is going to stick. I think it was the way that Jeskai Black was part. It was probably the main part of its aggro strategy, but a lot of the decks right now are playing a more control standpoint of the deck. Maybe it'll just have to make that full transition from the aggro list to the control list.
Yeah, there's not much aggro options when you don't have a 3/3 for 3 that flies, has haste and vigilance.
Yeah, nothing says aggro about that.
Nothing at all.
I'm definitely happy to see Siege Rhino leave. I don't think anybody will miss that.
No, it's pretty much overstayed its welcome. Like, it was a good card in the format. It really helped shape last year, but this year it's just kind of we're done with it, you know?
They've tried to shape the format off of a card that shaped last format.
Yeah.
It's like, you gotta stop.
And then there's Monastery Swift Spear, which we're still going to see plenty of as Modern players.
Oh yeah, of course, especially with Is It Burn and Prowess, which is a thing. My brother Josh has been playing that a lot. My god, it's tough.
What's the next 3 on the list?
Anaphans of the Foremost, Radical Mystic, and Wingmate Rock.
They're heavily played, but not, I guess, as much as those other 3?
Yeah, Anaphansa I would probably say maybe for Commander, but the other 2, Wingmate Rock maybe for Commander, or maybe even in some sort of white brew, but other than that,
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of but I'm going to miss Rattleclaw. What about you, TJ?
Especially for me, like we're the ramp players. The thing about it is that it was really the only 2-mana dork in the format.
The only one worth
there is
playing.
Whisperer of the Wilds, but it is rotating as well, because it was in Fate Reforged as an uncommon.
It's kind of filled the void that Sylvan Carried had left behind, and its flexibility of having 3 colors on it. I mean, as ramp players, we've kind of seen the value of being able to flip it and immediately gain 2 mana.
This is where I look away and Google and say, at least we've got Beast Color Savant.
The next 3 are they're good cards, but they're more kind of fringy, but still, there are players who will miss them.
Rakshasha Death Dealer, more so aiming her toward Modern. She's pretty good with Jund and Bogari. And then the next 2 are Butcher of the Horde and Savage Knuckleblade. I looked up Savage Knuckleblade. I think it would be good for Modern to get Teamer back up and running.
It just depends on how it does against Eldrazi when it is 3 mana, but it's hard to get out there without dying to Eldrazi right now. So Modern is just really hard to know what's what right now. It's kind of like having kids.
Yeah.
So what's next?
Those were the creatures from Khans. Sorin, Solemn Visitor, Crackling Doom, and Jeskai Ascendancy / Alter the Brood.
I purposely grouped those two together because you really can't do Ascendancy without Alter if you're trying to do the combo, but I found it interesting that they were in the same set. Not everyone was playing Sorin, but he did have his day in combination with Elspeth.
He's seeing a lot of play right now, but I feel like he's actually left a decent amount of impact. Like, the amount of impact he made was the amount Siege Rhino probably should have. Like, he was very, very good last format, and now he's getting his last minute time to shine, and he's going out.
Yeah, and he's going out, and he's not going to see much more play after that.
Lord of Innistrad's 9 million times better.
And then Crackling Doom, that is huge as far as spells. What do you guys think about Ascendancy, though? Do you think it'll still have modern playability?
It still has modern playability.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like my friend right now here in town, in Stephenville, he's playing the Jeskai Ascendancy list with like Birds of Paradise and all that other mess. Except it combos off a lot faster than turn about 3 or 4 that it normally did in Standard. It did something along the lines of animating your lands into creatures, and then he would tap himself out on turn 2 to play Jeskai Ascendancy, and then he would utilize the 0-drop Gitaxian Probe to activate the Palace triggers on all of his cards. But
that's awesome.
Yeah, the Gitaxian Probe was pretty much like the centerpiece of that version of the deck. You know, here's my free Ascendancy trigger.
What's next on the list, James?
The different charms, Dig Through Time and Treasure Cruise, and then Become Immense.
Well, I mean, Treasure Cruise was a mistake. It's got to go completely, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's not going to be playable in any other format now that it rotates. It's just another example of being short-sighted about eternal formats, just like with the Eldrazi. Same kind of thing. Treasure Cruise immediately got banned along with Dig, because, like, if you're going to ban Cruise, you got to ban Dig.
Dig was only limited for some time, and then they were just like, okay, yeah, we can't fix that. We got to ban it.
Yeah, and I was kind of tired of seeing Dig in Standard. It's not that it's like I didn't know how to handle it or anything. It was just time for Dig to get out of here, too.
One thing that I was just sick of seeing, like when Cons first came out, and you know how it was all over the format, they were literally burn decks splashing blue for Treasure Cruise. That was just dumb. They're doing the exact same thing that they did when Jace the Mind Sculptor was printed. Like, if you were playing anything in Standard or Modern, like, I could be playing red-green ramp, but I'd be splashing blue for Jace. I would not even feel bad about it. Like, every deck did that. That and Stoneforge Mystic. You were doing one or the other.
Losing the charms, as always, will kind of take some utility away. We still have commands, you know.
Yeah.
But it's very much like when we lost the guild charms. Only these charms cost 1 more mana, so you kind of had a little bit more to do with them. It was never like, I wish it cost 1 less, I could play it on turn 2. 3 mana felt about right on that. And the Become Immense, plus another card that we're going to see later, kind of takes away Atarka Red's main toolbox of being able to win in a really quick fashion. But what's after that? What's the next 4?
Crater's Claw, Despise, Stubborn Denial, Disdainful Stroke, and then Villainous Wealth.
Yeah, it seems like Stubborn Denial and Disdainful Stroke were really good counterspells. We're kind of at a point where there's not a lot of good counterspells. We lost Dissolve, for example, and Syncopate. So Stubborn Denial had its place. Disdainful Stroke had its place. Crater's Claw is not as big as it was this past summer when TJ and I were on Red-Green Dragons for a bit.
The card is nuts. I actually played a deck playing it as a 4-up last night, but I'm not going to talk about the time when I actually lost to the deck, because it was a mono-red, just play a burn spell every turn, go. Like, I don't know how I really lost to it. It was just super consistent.
And then Villainous Wealth, just kind of a fun tool. I had a Villainous Wealth deck, didn't I, TJ?
Yes, you did.
That was fun.
I got really upset when I was playing Abzan, and I was like, oh, he gets Sorin and a Siege Rhino and the other half of my deck.
That was what ended up being a Super Friends deck before Ugin was printed, and then Ugin was printed and everyone was on Super Friends, and it was like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, everyone was on the Ugin hype train when he first came out.
But what's next on here?
The Fetches in Tricolor Land.
Yeah, that's. I would say that in Standard they were at one point equally relevant, the Tricolor lands and the fetch lands. But I mean, with the way the format is right now, it's all about fetching either basics or the battle lands. But the Tricolor lands still had their place.
Yeah, the Tricolor lands were still splashed in the 4-color list. Like, 4-color rally list ran, I think, a couple of the Sandstep Citadel, the Abzan Tri-land. But the thing about the fetch lands is now all of the Chengo lands from Battle for Zendikar are just really bad backwards versions of the Mirrodin lands.
They're not near as good when you can't just pick them out from your deck.
They're fine. Just now people are going to be playing them as a 4-of just because they can't consistently just go search for it. They're pretty much just going to be those utility lands that are just like, well, they're going to come in tapped unless you've got it, 2 basics. But you're not going to be able to fetch for them like you are now, and it's going to be a little bit weird.
I'm very okay with losing the fetch lands and the tricolor lands because multicolor, 4-color, 3-color was way too consistent for way too long, and it's all from one set. And so it's been a year and a half of people playing 3 to 4 color decks, and I'm kind of ready for that to not be a thing so that we can actually be punished for trying to play multiple colors rather than being encouraged to do so. Now, I'm not saying I want to go back to the days of mono black and mono blue and mono green, but it would be great if we could get to a point where we're no longer sacrificing anything. If we could get to a point where we actually have to sacrifice consistency in exchange for power when it comes to being multicolor.
Yeah, just for our listeners out there, if you don't know really what we're talking about, go look up a deck called 4-Color Rally. You will know exactly what we're talking about.
And 4-color dragons and 4-color control.
Yeah, 4-Color Rally is just bonkers. It's really, really just a Sultai deck, just splashing double white for Rally. And the fact that you can do that very, very consistently as well as you are, with the ability to use any blue fetch to find one of the white sources or green fetch to find a white source, and you're playing practically every fetch in Standard in that deck.
Now to Fate Reforged real quick before we move on to the article of the week. And the interesting thing here is that the first 3 creatures listed here are huge in other formats, so it's not like we're saying goodbye to them as much as remembering just how big these cards are.
Oh yeah, it's Monastery Mentor, Tassiger the Golden Fang, and Soulfire Grandmaster.
Yeah.
Monastery Mentor, holy crap, it's gonna keep its value.
If you're wanting to talk in terms of like actual modern lists, Esper Mentor is a huge thing right now, and it will always be a huge thing because it's like probably the Esper control of the format. But I mean, just Monastery Mentor in general is just a nut house. Like Tassiger's played in any modern control deck that plays black now just because of his consistency to be able to be played on turn 2 or 3 with Thought Scour. It's so dumb.
It might be safe to say that Monastery Mentor could be the new way to win for control decks now that they don't have Twin.
I don't know. I haven't really thought about him in a modern standpoint. I'm sure he would be good, but the fact that he's constantly a bolt target. But then again, like, it's kind of hard to say when I say he's constantly a bolt target, because like 90% of the modern format is constantly a bolt target.
Oh yeah.
But at the same time, he's going to be more of the attention grabber in terms of what they use bolt on, I guess, if that makes sense.
Sure. And that comes down to the dice to removal argument. And what he brings to the table is that as long as you have a way to either protect him or make that token, now you've got a way to win.
Correct.
So then there's Tassiger, which you guys talked about, and then Soulfire Grandmaster, you never know. You might actually see that in Modern, because it's a pretty good card.
If you're playing Commander, you're playing him in your white deck, I'm just saying. I've seen this EDH deck focus around, and he had the Tendrils of Agony, that's what it was. And Tendrils of Agony is a card that targets the player and deals a lot of damage, and it's a black card. There's no telling the possibilities with Soulfire Grandmaster for what we know.
Next 2 cards were Warden of the First Tree and Whisperwood Elemental.
You guys remember when Whisperwood was everywhere about a month after it came out? You guys
Vaguely.
remember green-white aggro?
Yeah.
Yeah. Bye, Selesnya.
I will never like a green-white aggro deck more than the one I had back in the Ravnica Theros standard, though. Just Loxodon Smiter with a Johnny Color of the Pride and end of turn make a 5/5 Worm with Trample. I mean, nothing about
God.
it. It was so good. Advent of the Worm was probably my favorite card ever.
That was a pretty good card.
I played Bant Control to play that card. I always played Control in the Ravnica standard, but...
And then Warden of the First Tree seeing plenty of play this year. He was only an Abzan aggro last year, which wasn't as heavily played as mid-range because of Elspeth. He's pretty big right now, being able to level something up on turn 2 and swing for 3 and so forth. Well, what are the next 3, which are fringe but still pretty good?
Colligan, the Storm's Fury, Solomgar, the Drifting Death, and Whisperer of the Wilds.
Now, when we talked about losing our mana dorks that are 2-drops, we're pretty much with the loss of Whisperer of the Wilds in addition to the Rattleclaw Mystic. You find that really all you're left with is things like Hedron Crawler, and that kind of sucks for anyone wanting to do ramp.
Bad Color Savant.
Okay, yeah, and then there's still Leaf Gilder at the moment, but we're going to lose Leaf Gilder with the next rotation. So why don't you just read all the different spells that are going to rotate in Fate Reforged?
Alright, Rally the Ancestors, Ugin, Seamer Battle Rage, that'll be good in Prowess builds, Sieges, Wild Slash, Valorous Stance, and Mastery of the Unseen.
All really good cards.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I feel like Rally will finally just die after this rotates out.
if it wasn't enough that they're losing the mana base, now they're losing, the namesake.
Oh
Yeah, the deck won't be a thing after rotation, which is, thank goodness. But Ugin, yeah, you'll never not see him. Tron, for real. Red, green Tron, green, white Tron, or anything with Urza in its name, he'll be in that deck.
Oh, yeah, I run him.
Okay, I think now we need to move on to this week's Manaleak article of the week, which I actually got to proofread, and so I picked it out for this episode before it even went live. And it is an article by Matt Gregory, who, if you are a longtime Manaleak reader, will remember he's the one who wrote that it was a mistake to ban Chwin, because it would be it's a way to police degeneracy in the formats, and ultimately there were the reasons for banning it, and they have nothing to do with Eldrazi, but ultimately not having Chwin kind of led to Eldrazi going rampant. I don't see that there's so much a connection as it was that Chwin would have some tools to combat it with their turn 4 kill. And actually, if you are a Channel Fireball viewer, they recently did a versus series where they did Chwin versus Eldrazi, and Chwin actually won the match.
Yeah, Chwin is a very good answer to the Eldrazi matchup because it has the ability to out-tempo it. That's pretty much the big word for it, is out-tempo. Not even control. It's not even the control aspect. It's just the fact that it can hold its own in time for its ability to combo off, and the fact that the Eldrazi deck, unless you're playing the blue-white version, has very little interaction with your board.
Now, we're not so much going to be talking about Eldrazi, even though the article's name is Why I Won't Be Playing Eldrazi at Grand Prix Bologna. Take your pick. Bologna. Bologna. My sandwich has a first name. Yeah, so Kolagna. It's not so much we're not going to talk about his reasons for not playing Eldrazi as a deck itself, but so much it's the points that he makes midway through the article that I really felt like was worth discussion. People always say play what you enjoy, play Magic for the fun of it, but I really liked the points that he makes here. He actually gets into specifics about what is bad about playing a deck you don't like. So he says, first off, his reason for not playing Eldrazi is that he hates the deck, and he likes how open the format was before Eldrazi, and he doesn't like how closed it is now. And he sets the stage of his reason for not playing Eldrazi by going back to when Treasure Cruise was king with Jeskai Burn in Modern, and that was before Birthing Pod was banned, so it was either Treasure Cruise or Birthing Pod, and that got fixed, as it always does. And he played the deck, Treasure Cruise, Jeskai Burn, because he wanted to win. Only not liking it led him to not test it, really, so he ended up not knowing his matchups and losing with one of the best decks in the format because he didn't like it enough to get good with it.
Yeah, that's one of the things about Magic. You can't really just play a deck just because it's good. You play the game because it's fun. You don't play it. Like, the thing that's been really controversial with the game is that people think that there's a difference between playing it for fun and playing it to make money. And kind of just quoting a post that Jeff Ruglin made on Facebook not too long ago, he was asked on one of his posts, this guy that remains anonymous, he asked him, how come you aren't playing Eldrazi if it's the best deck? Just an honest question. And he replied to him with, because I'd rather skip a Magic event rather than play something I don't enjoy. If playing Magic is going to feel like work, I'll just go to work and make actual money.
Yeah, make actual money instead of having a chance at making money, maybe hoping to pay for the trip.
Yeah, I really wanted to quote him on that because that pretty much pointed out the main gist of the entire conversation in terms of why people don't want to play Eldrazi, because they understand just the same reason. It's everywhere. I wouldn't play a format where everybody was playing the same deck. That doesn't really sound like a format. That sounds like a one-deck meta.
It pretty much is.
Different variations of the deck, like you can play red-blue, but I'm going to play blue-white, and it just doesn't really, it just seems like...
Let's not dwell on Eldrazi here. We're talking about a topic that we haven't talked 3 episodes on, which is, he says that he learned an important lesson playing Treasure Cruise when he hated Treasure Cruise, which was don't ever play a deck you don't want to play. Doesn't matter how disciplined you are with yourself, you will end up cutting corners in testing, and that is the way that you end up losing, is by cutting corners. You don't put the hours in because it starts to feel like work. It starts to feel like you're playing World of Warcraft and doing dailies in order to raid. It starts to feel like work. You don't want to do it anymore. So I just wanted to know what you guys thought about that, and if you're listening, then go check that out. It's a great article by Matt Gregory.
Yeah, it is a really good article. I have to say, I agree with what Matt had said in the article about it. If you're not in the right mindset to play, pretty much you're just shooting yourself in the foot. It just becomes work, like you had said. You're pretty much in a prison sentence to try and play this thing, even though you're not really happy with it. I'm not happy that the Eldrazi are running rampant. I've calmed down from my initial stance on it, as you guys know. But in a format where it's supposed to be open, when it's so enclosed with just Eldrazi and Infect and Affinity, it's just like where to go with it. I'm a fringe player. I play what I feel feel like I can see what works best for me in terms of how I play. Like, I play Esper Mill, and that's nowhere near any top-tier decks. It's just sort of dirtling down at the bottom of everything, but I like it. It's fun, and it's effective. If you want to play to win, go net deck. Go do whatever you feel like doing. Just try and not get an attitude about it.
Yeah, that's why net decking is even a term, is because of the fact that they've tried to separate the casual players from the competitive players. A lot of the people think that you have to net deck to be successful in big tournaments, when that's not entirely true.
Well, you guys are actually heading straight on to the community topic, so why don't we introduce the community topic so we can ask our question of the week. And the community topic is something that is near and dear to what TJ and I are dealing with right now, where we both have Model Green Ramp ready for Grand Prix Houston this weekend. I don't know when this episode comes out. Hopefully it comes out Saturday or Sunday, but we will be at Grand Prix Houston either when it comes out or before it comes out. And we've tested this deck extensively. We know the matchups forwards and backwards, and now it appears that it's rising in popularity more than we expected. That's kind of a problem. So we're in the process of deciding, do we switch away from ramp at the last second, which I am not going to do, or what the Magic community calls an audible, or do we play what we know in sideboard against the hate, which I think we've ultimately gone with the latter. But the question here that we should discuss before we ask the question is, when is it too late to change your deck before the tournament? What's the reason that you would do so? So TJ, why don't you walk us through the journey of the past week for you?
The past week, us, in terms of, like, the team here in Stephenville, we've been working, like, we've proxied up the entire meta, practically, and we just took our decks. We had multiple tests against them. I've been on MTGO met testing constantly, and the cool part is I've actually been, like, last night, I played about 20 games, and over the course of those 20 games, that wasn't all just me playing ramp. I piloted each deck in the meta, just to kind of see, because I feel like the best way to know how to beat a deck is to know how it works in and out. So I wanted to actually play the deck in a couple of forms and fashions. If I know they're going to keep their hand, what hand looks good. When I was playing Rally, if I had a collected company and good way to find consistent mana and play Cutthroat or Husk on turn 2 and 3, I felt good about it. So I know, like, if they're keeping their hands or if they're chunking and mulliganing it, I know what to expect in terms of what they're looking for. Now, in terms of what decks have been doing good, the ramp deck is definitely rampant. Overall, changing decks last minute, I feel like you're taking more of a risk than you are sticking with what you know. And it's not like I don't know the other deck, but at the same time, I'd rather be more comfortable playing with what I 110% know is a good hand or not, whereas picking up a hand I don't really know and go, this is fine. In terms of, like, when it's too late to change decks, my honest answer is once you build the deck and you've played with it and realize you like it, don't change. No matter what the meta might be, because we've been getting a lot of insight that Infinite Obliteration is going to be in, like, any black sideboard at this event. Yes, that is extremely good against us, not going to lie. But me and Joseph have adjusted our sideboards to play 4 Warping Whale, and we're going to feel good about it when we get to play Counter Magic in a ramp deck.
Yeah, sideboard tech is real.
No, yeah, it really is. And you can start a whole playset in a ramp deck against any deck playing Transgress the Mind and an Infinite Obliteration. And honestly, you really want to be on the play so you have your mana consistent up to be able to hold up Warping Whale when they try to turn 2 Transgress the Mind you. But if you are on the draw and you're going to be like a turn behind, they're obviously not going to take the Warping Whale out of your hand. They can't with Transgress. If they play Duress, then I mean, it's a whole different story. But Transgress and Infinite Obliteration will basically be reacting with each other in terms of the ramp decks, because they will have to work together to be able to beat the ramp deck. Because honestly, like I was saying earlier, the 4-color rally list is a Sultai deck splashing double white. World Breaker takes you off double white, you're not going to win. You're just not. So, I mean, they have to have a way to get rid of that. If they don't obliterate you, or if they try to obliterate you and you counter it, they're just basically playing game 1 all over again. All the things that were good in their main board that they sided out to be able to handle the main board of red-green or mono-green ramp, it just got significantly worse. So, Warping Whale's been very, very good, though.
It feels really good to represent the mana of Warping Whale, and if your opponent knows that it's coming, then they have to play around it, which is exactly what you want. And if they don't know it's coming, which there's going to be a lot of people who who won't see it coming, they're going to be walking right into it all weekend, and that's going to feel really good. Not only does it hit all the hand stripping and infinite obliteration, but most of the decks that are doing that are also playing Jace, and it exiles Jace before he can flip, and that also feels really good.
Yeah, the ideal hand that I was thinking was leaving up like a mana for a Warping Whale, and then if for some reason they don't do any kind of hand disruption turn 2, you can end of turn. Because you're not going to want to hold on to that if you have 4 copies in your deck. You're not going to want to hold on to the first one. What I think would be like, especially against, like I was thinking when we were talking last night about the Eldrazi aspect of the ramp decks and how they react to each other. Like we were saying, well, game 1, whoever lands in Eldrazi first wins in a mirror match. Because if you land Thought-Knot Seer, you take their ramp, they're off curve. If you land Worldbreaker first, you take their land, they're off curve. You play Ulamog, you exile their things, maybe even land, they're off curve. And the thing about ramp is if they get off curve, they're just dead.
Yeah, I would much rather trade a Warping Whale for a ramp spell any day if I'm playing the mirror. I take the ramp spell away, I've still got my ramp card, there's a lot of card advantage in that. If you're a ramp player on the play, then you can get a turn 3 archive and then just sit there with a Warping Whale and now you can actually play it.
Yeah, no, but that's what I was saying. Like, I think when you side in Warping Whales, I think siding out Nissa's Pilgrimage is the way to go.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Because then you get to represent the mana on turn 2 to play your mana dork, and then turn 3 you dump out your Hedron Archive, and Hedron Archive has the ability to tap for double waste, so you can play your Warping Whale off of that. And what I was saying yesterday was the curve to be able to go, because I know for a fact, like, me and you might be the only couple of people playing Warping Whale in our sides.
And it's just because we're kind of on to the idea that people are on to us.
Yeah, and what I was saying just a minute ago, when you get a ramp deck off curve, you get the ramp deck off curve, they lose. And when you're able to have ramp, basically when you play Hedron Archive, you're ramping yourself up, able to hold a counterspell back. They play their Nissa's Pilgrimage the next turn, you tap your Hedron Archive, and you cast Warping Whale to counter it. Then not only are they super off curve, then you can go into turn 4 Thought-Knot Seer, strip their hand, they're just not going to win.
That feels really good. I wanted to give a brief shout out here, because you mentioned that you don't want to keep the Warping Whale in hand if nothing happens on turn 2, but you didn't say how, and I know what you were going to say. We had a viewer, Preston Thorpe, who was asking about Warping Whale after episode 11, asking about using that to make the Scion to get the turn 3 veggies, and that actually is not a horrible idea. If you side in the Warping Whale, don't get to use it, you could at least get your turn 3 veggies.
Yeah, and what's really cool is you have to consider the fact that any deck that sides in the hand disruption that we're expecting, they don't always see it. And the cool part about that is, against things like Rally doesn't even play any hand disruption in their sideboard. They play 2 Murderous Cat against us. But the cool part about that is, even if you're expecting any time you play black to play hand disruption, now whether Rally has decided to change their sideboard or not, Warping Whale is good either way. If they did decide to change their sideboard, we have the counter magic for it. If they don't change it, it exiles Jace.
Yeah, it either exiles Jace or we hold it and then nothing happens and we get a turn 3 veggies off of it.
Yeah, no, that's my big part, is it exiles Jace too. And when in the Rally matchup, when you exile Jace, it's crazy good.
Yeah, so all of that is our thoughts on the idea that since we know that the meta is going to be prepared for us, they're going to be siding in a card that just utterly destroys us, that rather than switching, we've just opted to bring in anti-countermeasures. So many worlds being broken, so many distortions being great. James, what is our community question with all of these topics in mind?
Alright, the community question is, how do you pick your Magic the Gathering deck? Do you choose based on its tournament potential, or how much you like the deck itself?
I like this question because it brings us back to the Grand Prix Bologna, which is the idea of either play the best deck or play a deck you enjoy playing. And then it also very much ties into our community topic, which is, do I change to a deck that seems like a metagame call that I have no experience with, or do I play the deck that I'm good with, has a good linear strategy, and just hope that I can stave off all the disruption?
Well, I'll just kind of keep it short. My main thing to say to the viewers about that, if you're comfortable with a deck, you take the one you're most comfortable with. Don't try to change last minute. What I do recommend you do, if you have the ability, like if you play X-Mage, or, just one of the other clients like Cockatrice, where you can test with the cards for free, I would definitely pilot the other decks, so that way you can learn the ins and outs of the deck, you learn how the deck functions, you know what their key parts are. At the same time, you need to understand that the deck that you've been playing, you know as well as everyone else knows their deck. So if you want to play another deck, test with it to understand how it works. Do not try to change.
Well, it's time to end the episode. Any final thoughts or final words you guys would like to say?
It's very important. Remember, you played Magic in the first place because you like the game. So also play the Magic cards that you like. Enjoy slinging those spells whether you win or lose.
And I can't wait for that promo Stoneforge Mystic for EDH.
All right,
Yeah,
let's say our farewell, shall we?
I'm not really much into the social media thing. I have a Facebook. I'm always open for questions. You can look me up on Facebook, TJ Love. Feel free to message me. Good luck to everyone playing this weekend at the GP, and good luck to anybody else playing in an event who listens to this podcast and takes what we have into consideration in terms of what decks they're going to be playing.
I'm Joseph Dunlap. You can find me on Twitter at Joseph_Dunlap. I am the executive producer of Draw 4 Podcast, and it's always a pleasure.
Yeah, everyone have fun at any event that you're doing this weekend. I am James Kelly. I'm a member of the production team here for Draw 4. And as always, this has been Draw 4 Podcast. Until next time, we wish you good fortune and may you draw well.